الشعب اللي تمشى بالحفاظ عالشوك عجلي وعلى النار.
بن بولعيد واسمو مصطفى علي لطوانت وبدي عمر. القصبة ما زالها واقفة وما زالوا عساس الدار، ما زالها سعلة السقيفة وما زالها حرمة الجار. أنا يا بلادي راني عارف هما ما كانوش عارفين،
دهشوا نهار علي ما توقف، احنا عادتنا نموت واقفين. نموت على النيف والشرف، نموت على الوطن والدين، علمنا بلا ريح يرفرف، احنا هما الجزائريين. أنا يا بلادي على بالي هما ما كانوش فاهمين،
حبوا يديو البلاد ديالي حسبونا ماناش قادرين. فكتهم حسيبة بنبوع لي الجميلة تونسى الأخرين، من حقك يا الجزائر تولولي ولدي نساو رجال حرين. أنا يا بلادي سمحيلي ما قدرتش نذكرهم كاملين،
واش نذكر واش نخلي شهداء رواحهم طاهرين، مازالهم في قلبي وفي بالي، ربي يرحمهم أجمعين. والقصبة مازالها ديالي وسط الدار والعرس واقفين.
معليش يا القصبة وريلهم
قرصان رياس وساطيل، على عروج وخير الدين احكي لهم،
وفهم الناس اللي جاهلين
باللي الجزائر ماهيش ليهم، ولادها مازالهم عايشين في وسط الناس. كيفاش تعرفهم في الشدة ديما متحدين،
باللي الجزائر ماشي ديالهم ولادها مازالهم عايشين في وسط الناس. كيفاش تعرفهم في الشدة ديما متحدين.
Jazair Hope friends and all the present, welcome to our live stream today. As announced, today we'll be speaking about the war against Iran, but through the lenses of the Hormuz Strait. So we will deep dive into how the Strait operates, its economic importance, and the implication of its economic importance into the global geopolitics. To speak about that, I am very pleased to have with me today Jonathan Pillet, who joined me from Buenos Aires in Argentina. Jonathan Pillet is drilling and supervisor of upstream and oil and gas and professional. So, Jonathan, thank you very much for accepting my invitation today, and most welcome on Jazair Hope platform.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to the conversation today.
Thank you. Jonathan, if you allow me, for the interest of the audience, I will present a bit of your bio in French, and then we will start directly our discussion. Donc, les amis de Jazeera Hope, je vais vous présenter Jonathan, ou une petite bio de Jonathan. Jonathan est superviseur de forage, professionnel de l'amont pétrolier et gazier avec 25 ans d'expérience dans l'industrie, acquise auprès d'entreprises de forage ainsi que de grands opérateurs internationaux. Il totalise 15 années d'expérience internationale dans 11 pays, dont plus de 10 ans au Moyen-Orient et en Afrique du Nord. Son parcours couvre les opérations à terre et en mer, incluant le forage, la complétion et les interventions sur les puits, sur des installations allant de petits appareils de forage unitaires à des appareils triples de 2500 chevaux, ainsi que sur des plateformes offshore auto-élévatrices, qu'on appelle jack-up. Fort d'une expérience étendue dans la région, Jonathan apporte une expertise technique approfondie du terrain pétrolier, ainsi qu'une compréhension opérationnelle, interaction en énergie, infrastructure dynamique, géopolitique régionale et locale. Donc, son analyse du conflit contre l'Iran, ou la guerre contre l'Iran, comme vous pouvez l'imaginer, ne se repose pas uniquement sur le suivi de l'actualité, mais sur des années d'expérience opérationnelle en Moyen-Orient. Jonathan, with that, let's start. So my first question, and I hope, as it has been announced that the war is quote-unquote over, do you believe that it is over? And while talking about this, is the Hormuz Strait open now, or is it still closed? How it is operating? Who can cross? Who cannot cross? And what are the conditions to cross the strait?
Right. Well, I guess to answer the first question, I don't believe that the conflict is over. The ceasefire ends on the 22nd of April. I think we're likely to see an extension of that. But my understanding is a 10-day ceasefire has also been called between Israel and Lebanon. So we'll see how that progresses. But I think there's still talks going on in the background, but it's still highly volatile. So there is that potential that we could again see the conflict start again. And with U.S. military, I think there's 6 destroyers now in and around the Strait of Hormuz. So they're having their own blockade. So there's always that chance that there could be a mistake, which could escalate things as well. And Israel is kind of an unknown element here where they could cause a breach of the ceasefire and escalations again. We've seen it in the past, so it's a potential. As for conditions around the Strait of Hormuz, so we've got 2 blockades going right now. We have the IRGC, which have their terms mostly on the G7 and any countries that are doing business with the United States. And then we have the US blockade of any tankers that are going to Iranian ports. So they've been turning back vessels, and we kind of have this ghost fleet, which are trying to, fill up at an Iranian port and transfer their cargo to another vessel, and they have their AIS systems off, and they're trying to transit. And so there's both elements. The Iranians are blocking non-Iranian transit, and the U.S. is blocking any Iranian business transit. So that's where we sit right now in terms of the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, and how the crossing before this couple double blockade, how Iranians were allowing or not allowing, under what conditions they were allowing ships to go through or not?
Well, it wasn't really clear initially, but it seems to be more to do with China or Asian vessels that were allowed passage. There was a few other countries, I think some Philippines and maybe some Indian tankers that were allowed through. And then they have a toll, which, depending on the size of the cargo, is like $1 a barrel, basically for. So some of these tankers haul around 2 million barrels, or so you're or a million barrels. So you've got like a $2 million toll basically on a vessel, and that was subjective, and it's breach of international law, and the Iranians were directing vessels out of the traditional deep waterways closer to Iranian territorial waters, and they would be monitored through there by the IRGC if they were allowed passage through after paying the toll. And the tolls were being paid in yuan, not in US dollars, because obviously there's sanctions on the Iranian economy right now. And some crypto as well. I believe some USDT and some other cryptocurrencies were being used.
And understood. And for now, there is a double blockade. There is an announcement that the war will end. We'll see how things will develop. My next question, Jonathan, is about the global importance of Hormuz. We'll go through this piece by piece. But in general, people, when they speak about the Strait of Hormuz, they immediately think about oil and gas. Is it the only two products that matters when we speak about Hormuz, or it's much more than that?
No, it's definitely not only oil and gas. There's 20 million barrels a day of oil, which is about 25% of the global supply and about 20% of the LNG. And a lot of that goes to the Asian markets. So the Asian, and I guess for LNG, also Europe. So you're seeing the most pain from the Asian markets in terms of oil and gas. But the next biggest part is fertilizer. You've got urea and ammonia, and about 50%. So there's a third of urea and ammonia, approximately, that is been cut off from the global supply, and about 50% of the sulfur, which is used to make sulfuric acid, which would be used to extract minerals like from phosphate rocks and cobalt and nickel and whatnot from other ore. So 50% is pretty important. And so all of this means that there's a restriction on the fertilizer supply for the entire global market. And right now we're in the middle of the planting season in the Northern Hemisphere. So there's going to be some impact there. And then if this continues, we're going to see the Southern Hemisphere affected later in 2026 as we see other Southern Hemisphere economies start to get into their main planting seasons, Brazil being one of the main ones.
Jonathan, apart from crossing the strait, is there any harm to the oil and gas industry that will impact the prices longer than as soon as the war would end?
Well, I think it's being priced in higher prices for a little bit longer. This disruption is going to take some time to clear up. So even if the war were to end today and the Strait of Hormuz was completely open and we returned back to pre-war conditions, there would still be elevated prices for longer. I think it'll take some time, possibly to the end of the year at the earliest, before we would see any kind of lowering of prices. But yeah, for the moment, that's where we sit.
But is it because there is some damage to the infrastructure or part of the infrastructure in the region?
There's some damage, for sure. Like Qatar had significant strike and lost about 17% of its LNG export capability. And we've had attacks at some of the oil refineries or depots in Oman, in the UAE, as well as in Saudi Arabia. So we've got some damage. Repairs have been made to some of this, but some of it is going to take potentially months to years to repair. So there's going to be some restriction. We're not at a point right now where that would significantly impact prices. I would say if the ceasefire doesn't hold and the war continues and we get this larger destruction of civilian infrastructure, which was threatened by the Trump administration into Iran. The Iranians have committed to destroying all the GCC oil infrastructure. So if that were to happen, the repairs would, I don't think it's just the repair cost and time, it's also the uncertainty and instability in the region would make investment difficult. Finding people to invest billions of dollars into rebuilding that infrastructure where everything is so uncertain would be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I think that is one of the reasons, according to my views, and please let me know if that holds, this global importance to the global investment universe might be the reason for the end of the war, because big investors and big fund managers are not interested to see a global slowdown in the economy, and that would certainly happen if this oil and gas industry in the region is destroyed.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. We're already approaching recessionary timeframes, and if it were to extend, it'd be depressionary. So you would see falling prices and inflation. And the U.S., for example, has $9 trillion that they need to refinance of their debt this year. So with higher interest rates, because the Fed won't be able to lower rates, you could see higher payments. So harder to refinance the U.S. debt. So there's a dollar risk, but certainly from an investor perspective, I mean, there's a lot of big money in the UAE specifically. They kind of marketed themselves as a safe haven for big tax-free money to come in and do business, and offering safety for that investment. And now there's that uncertainty. How likely is it to be able to return to a safe investment region? That's not known. Certainly there's a lot of big interest, not just from the business sector, but also politically. Politicians around the world don't want the disruption because obviously their voter base or their populations are going to be upset if they have to pay higher prices for everything. So it creates a little bit of unrest. So everybody wants this to calm down and for there to be peace and a return to normalcy, but it's still pretty uncertain at the moment.
So yeah, that confirms that the Strait of Hormuz is eventually the biggest weapon in the hands of Iran, and they are playing it extremely smart. Jonathan, one of the questions that people don't get very easily is the impact of the prices globally, and particularly on U.S. producers. So we know that the U.S. is self-sufficient energy-wise. So the simple thinking would say that why would the prices increase in the U.S. if there is abundance of offer? So what is the answer to that?
Well, oil is a globally traded commodity. So wherever the prices go around the world, if you're a U.S. business, you're going to sell at the highest rate possible. And that means the domestic buyers of that oil to refine it and send it to the market within the United States, for example, they have to pay the market price. So it doesn't lower. They're as a country, the U.S. is a net energy exporter. However, because they're a capitalist country, it's not a nationalized oil industry. They have to sell that oil at market price. And since the global supply is restricted, the price is elevated, so they have to pay the higher price as well. If they were to somehow manage nationalizing their oil industry, maybe they could do something about it, but that would be going against the entire market, how the U.S. market is built.
Yeah, so just to clarify it further to our audience, for example, if we take a country like Algeria, which subsidized energy prices, higher oil and gas prices have not impacted the country because the government keeps the prices as is. While in the U.S., these are private companies, multinationals, that will reflect automatically, and the consumers, American consumers, are hard hit. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely. There's no subsidizing that I'm aware of in the United States. And yeah, that would go against the whole free market economy, having the U.S. meddle in either freezing prices or subsidizing those that particular commodity. So yeah, that doesn't happen in the U.S., but that pretty much would sum it up, I would say.
Okay. One more technical question, Jonathan, is related to the jobs in the industry. Have you seen any impact due to this war?
Good question. I haven't really seen. I think there's still a lot of optimism from the GCC nations. They're still holding out hope that there can be peace. So a lot of wells have been shut in, and there's kind of this wait and see how things are going to play out. And so for the Middle East itself, I haven't seen a whole lot of disruption to the job market. And we're still fairly early into this. I was expecting around now, between now and the 3-month mark. So we're a month and a half into this conflict, so maybe up into the 3-month mark. We'll start to see some proposals for some international projects. And then if that does happen, maybe around the 3-month mark, if the conflict is still going on, a lot of uncertainty, we'll start to see significant investment and then projects starting up to pull people out of the Middle East to look for or fulfill jobs. So, but we're still kind of in that wait and see period. People in the countries in the Middle East, the projects that are running, they don't want to lose their people. So they haven't just let everybody go and see, fire everybody and pull them back in a couple months. That's not the plan right now, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. We'll move now, Jonathan, to the geopolitical view and implication of all what happened so far. And my first question to you is, according to a professional in the field, what is the root cause of this war? Is it economic? Is it geopolitical? Is it for the interest of the U.S. or for the interest of Israel? I heard you in one of your podcasts talking about the possibility of seeing the U.S. decoupling from GCC. If that is the case, what is the reason?
Well, so this is a tough question. Right now, nobody that I've been able to speak to or listen to has been able to give a clear definition as to why this conflict started. It's been twice now negotiations. Back in June, before the 12-day war, there's negotiations, and then in the middle of that, Iran was attacked. And then again in February, negotiations were ongoing. Iran was attacked. Right after I believe it was the Omani foreign minister said that they were very close to a deal. They were looking very positive, and then Iran was attacked by Israel, followed by the United States. So we never really had a clear answer. We've had their nuclear enrichment. We've had Trump saying he's going to go in and take their oil. From Israel's perspective, it's an existential threat to have Iran there. So we don't really have a clear, it's like 5 or 6 different potential reasons. I think a lot of it has to do with Israel and the fact that they think that this presidency was a good candidate to get them to take out Iran. And we know that Israel, or Netanyahu himself, has been trying to get the US into this kind of position for a very long time, many presidencies, to try and get the United States to attack Iran, and Trump was the first one to go ahead and take him up on it. So I think it's more driven by Israel personally, but it's kind of hard to say because we've heard so many different reasons from Trump. What was the second part of your question?
It's regarding the possibility of the US decoupling from GCC.
Right. So I threw that out there as a potential. that would be that particular video. The idea being that the United States is seeing itself as reducing in power. It's not going to become a unipolar world. It's going to be a multipolar world where you're going to see China rising as a superpower, potentially Russia coming back. You've got BRICS. So the U.S. system is being threatened, and if you're the United States, you've seen them. Okay, we're going to take over Venezuela. They've pushed China out of Panama. They've sanctioned and embargoed Cuba to try and crush that. They've threatened to take Canada and Greenland. So it seems like this rhetoric is we're going to reinforce ourselves in the Western Hemisphere as well as getting out of NATO. So if that's the view, if you're deciding, well, we're going to get out of the global police position, we're no longer going to be in that capacity. Let's, bring our forces home. We're going to consolidate our resources into the Western Hemisphere and control that and let China run the rest of the world. They get all their oil and gas out of the Middle East anyways. The US doesn't get it, and kind of decouple from that. Well, if that was the case, then maybe it would make sense. Let's do the damage we can with Iran. Iran can destroy all the infrastructure in the Middle East because it doesn't matter to the United States. All their bases get destroyed anyway. They're not going to rebuild it, and pull all their forces home, pull out of NATO. But that would be giving, that's a lot of credit to a very far-sighted plan from the United States, or the Trump administration in particular. And I don't know if there's any credibility to that. It was just an idea, like if the reasons that we're hearing out of Trump and Netanyahu for the reason we're seeing this war with Iran, if they don't quite have any substance to them, what is an alternate possibility? So I threw that out there. I don't know if there's any credibility to it, but it's worth exploring.
Yeah. Look, honestly, I don't think it's a very remote possibility, because US is US, and they were intervening or policing the world mostly because of energy historically. And the last few decades, they became more and more self-sufficient. So the Americans would start asking, why should we send our army outside the US? Before it was because the need for energy. It's not anymore the case. And over time, this can translate to less interest from US into the region. It is also maybe the reason for this war, because if the US will retract from GCC, what will happen? So we have three powers there. We have Iran, we have Israel, which is ambition to run the region. We have Saudi, we have a little bit of Egypt. So there will be a region looking for a new leader there. So this idea is not completely remote, I would say. In relation to that, Jonathan, how have you seen or read the position of the GCC countries during this war? So you have most of the countries tried to avoid any confrontation with Iran, while UAE was looking forward to the war to continue.
Yeah, that is an interesting. I don't know the driver of that, if that was just more ego-driven, but they still have a lot to lose. So for the most part, a lot of the GCC countries, the leadership has just been trying to have a position of, we are not allowing U.S. forces to use our bases to do hostile acts in Iran. And the hope there was that Iran would not attack them if that was the case, but Iran still did, to kind of show that they were willing to escalate if needed to protect themselves. So I was surprised that the UAE as well was saying that they were willing to continue the war. And it might be a way to message Iran and say, we are willing to fight if we're pushed too far. and rather than just having a complete passive stance, like please don't attack us, we won't retaliate. Maybe it's more of a way to say, like, if you continue to attack us, we're going to attack back, and then you're going to have more enemies in the region. So it might have been a deterrence statement rather than anything else.
Yeah. So because this question is important for our audience, being part of the Arab world, so it's very important for us to understand why, for example, how come that a country like Saudi Arabia has resisted the temptation to enter into this war while it was attacked quite heavily also, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, again, they still have a lot to lose. They have had some infrastructure that has been hit, but it hasn't been completely devastating. So they know that if they commit to combat, the first thing the Iranians are going to do is wipe out all of their oil infrastructure. So it'd be devastating, and it would take years and many, many billions to rebuild it. So I think they're still too much to lose. So just continue to hope for a ceasefire to continue, or peace. And I don't see any other reason than that. I mean, they have the option. They're partnered an alliance with Pakistan, which is a nuclear power. So there's that card that they have to play. So I think Iran is also aware of that, and they're not doing too much damage to Saudi, but they're still provoking them. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I think in simple words, you are telling us that they don't have much choice than to have this position and hoping for the end of war, because they have much more to lose if the war continue. This takes us to the global impact. So if a country like Saudi Arabia is looking forward to avoid a full-fledged war, how do you see maybe the far future in terms of reshaping of the global world order? We spoke about the US maybe decoupling. Is this war the beginning of genuinely new world order?
I think it certainly has the potential to be. If the Middle East is so important to China and South Asia, if the US were to pull out, I could see China having more influence in that region just to secure it as an energy security reasons. But I could also see Iran having a more significant role, because now they're policing the Strait of Hormuz, and it might actually elevate them on the world stage as more of a power than they've already had, because now the stage has been set, the status quo has been set that they control 20% of the global energy supply. So it might change them into more of a global power. And obviously Russia right now is getting its war coffers filled because they're able to sell their oil at a higher dollar amount, and it's funding their war in Ukraine. And there's been resources pulled away from Europe because of the US now in this conflict with Iran. So other players are able to elevate themselves, as well as if there's a decoupling. And you mentioned earlier about the US having energy concerns for many decades, and now they're self-reliant on their net exporting energy, so they don't really need the world energy. But it's never been really about energy for them. It's more about control. They control the global energy supply because that is how oil is traded on the US dollar. So, and that is the greatest export of the United States, is their dollar.
Yeah.
So if that is weakened to the point where they've kind of pulled away from the Middle East and they're no longer a dollar-based economy, an oil-based economy, then you could see the rise of other powers like China and Russia. And I think Iran would have a big position to play in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My last question, Jonathan, is how is this war looked at from your part of the world? I mean, Argentina and South America in general? Is it something that is looked at as far, we are not concerned, or does it impact even there?
Yeah, I think it's going to impact everywhere, including here. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm in Argentina, and already there's the economy here has already been an issue for many years. So having higher prices of any kind of import is always a pain point. And it's not just oil and gas, it's also, I mentioned it earlier, the fertilizers, but also raw goods for plastics, like your ethylene and your propylene and your naphtha and all that, that goes into manufacturing, and Argentina would be importing that, either the raw material or the finished product. So everything gets elevated, which just puts more stress. So obviously the people here, they already have they're financially stressed. A lot of them, there's a lot of poverty in all of Latin America. So any kind of increase in the cost of goods is difficult. Plus you have fertilizer shortages, which means you're going to have food shortages, and they don't have the financial resources to pay the higher dollar to either buy the fertilizer or pay for the more expensive food down the road. So I think, especially for developing countries, it's a lot more pain ahead. Maybe not right now, but I think we're going to see it in the coming 3 to 6 months. We'll really start to see it in the Southern Hemisphere, in Latin America.
Jonathan, we have a question from the audience, and it's related to Israel. The question says, is there any official reaction to Israel's attack on Saudi and Oman's infrastructure? I think this is in relation about the false flag attacks. And I will expand the question to ask you, would Israel let this ceasefire continue? Because according to me, that will be the biggest loser if the war ends.
Yeah, if the war ends, Israel is they haven't achieved their objectives. They're definitely interested in southern Lebanon, the greater Israel project. And I think for Israel, they're interested in rerouting a lot of the energy flow through into Israel, and then from a port they're exported to Europe. So if that is their goal, which then allows them to control a lot of the energy of Europe, it would put them in a very powerful position in the Middle East. So if the war were to end, I don't think they would have achieved that. Plus, they haven't achieved their southern Lebanon objectives and whatnot. But I'm not really familiar with Israel false flag operations in Saudi and Oman. I recall UAE, they had an attack there, if I'm not mistaken. But I believe it was the Iranians that had attacked Oman and Fujairah, as well as Shuaibah in Saudi, and cut their production a lot as well as the pipeline, the east-west pipeline in Saudi. But I wasn't aware of any Israeli attacks into Saudi and Oman.
Well, in the news there were some news that there are false flag attacks with the objective to get those countries involved into the war. There were certain operations that Iran has denied being the originator. So I think that what the question was relating to. But I think your answer about the position and the view of Israel on this war makes a lot of sense. In any case, and this will be my last question. So, what is the probability that this ceasefire will be the end of the war?
Great question. I have no idea. I really don't see it being the end of the war. Even if the ceasefire is extended and we get another extension, I believe there was a resolution or a bill that was submitted in Congress, and it was voted down to block extending the war powers of the president, or the money that would be funding this war. So there's still funding for it. But even if the ceasefire were to be extended a week, and then we get to that week deadline and it's extended another week, I think if you stretch it out long enough, I think Israel will likely breach the ceasefire at some point. Even if they do go back to negotiations, there's always the risk that they'll get sabotaged. So I don't see like a lasting peace. If you just expand that out a year or even 10 years, I don't think it's likely that we'll have peace in the region. I think it'll continue to be a problem.
Okay, understood. So let's hope for better outcome. But I agree with you that the situation is so complicated that it cannot be this easy to end like this. So
if I was Iran, I'm in a better position to have the war continue, and so is China, and so is Russia. So you have Israel not really wanting peace, but you have other parties that would also be interested to see this conflict continue, because it hurts the United States. It hurts their dominance on the global stage. It undermines their economy. So the more they can extend this out, I think it's in their best interest. And the more it's just set as like, why would Iran want to give up its ability to toll that waterway now that they've got that revenue stream? They're citing it as, well, we need compensation for rebuilding all the damage that's been done. So they don't really have any incentive not to toll it, and the US isn't going to accept it. So I just don't see how we get a lasting peace.
Okay, but if this is the case, so what would be the event that will make it finish? I mean, when Iran, Russia, and China will say, okay, we have achieved our objectives, and now we are happy to see it end.
I think really, if the only way to have a lasting peace in the region would be for a US withdrawal completely from the region. And that would put China in a position where they'd be happy, because then they could move in and have more influence in the region. From their perspective, I think they would be more interested in that. I might be wrong. I mean, obviously, I don't know the motives of the Chinese, but I think they're interested in using this as an ability, at least to undermine the US influence globally. And certainly the Trump administration is not helping themselves on the global stage right now. They're kind of undermining themselves with the constant rhetoric that they're putting out, and it's unstable. Every day there's a new announcement of tariffs or blockade or attacks, or wipe out a civilization or whatever. So it's very disruptive.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, because anyway, Iran has said that our main condition is that the US withdraw from the region, and for them this is the only guarantee they can get to remove the risk of being attacked again and again. So I completely agree with you. One of the major events that will give comfort to the whole world that we are at the end of this nightmare is that the US withdraw from GCC. That being said, US withdrawing from there is not a small event.
Right. I think another possibility would be a change in the US administration. If Trump is impeached and you get a changing more to the institutional powers that have traditionally been in the United States, I think right now you have Trump kind of acting alone and not in the best interest of the US. It's more of an ego-based presidency. So if there is a change in leadership, then the Iranians might have more trust or faith in the negotiations with being able to negotiate with a different president.
Yeah, well, ego / I would say blackmail of Trump, for that matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you very much. We have spent 45 minutes. I really appreciate the time and the insight. I hope we'll have another opportunity to discuss another topic. You will be most welcome. Any last word? But otherwise, thank you very much from my side.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your show. This has been fun. This is my first time doing a podcast where it's been an interview like this. So I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been fun, and I did learn as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, look, my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Pillet is mostly active on TikTok. So he publishes a lot of on a lot of topics. So I advise you to go and have a look. You just write his name as written in the screen on TikTok, and you will get to his channel. Jonathan, thank you very much, and hope to see you sometime soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your presence. Donc, je vous remercie de votre présence. Pour les gens qui ne maîtrisent pas l'anglais, je pense qu'après 24 heures, YouTube va mettre les sous-titres en français. De toute manière, merci d'avoir été présent avec moi aujourd'hui. Je vous souhaite une bonne fin de journée. Je vous dis à la prochaine. Jonathan, thank you very much and bye.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
حبك حكاية يا للناس، انت رواية كلك إحساس. حبك حكاية يا للناس، انت رواية كلك إحساس. انت رواية، حبك حكاية، انت رواية، حبك حكاية. مدة وسنين كلك حنين، أنا وياك عشناها الاثنين. مدة وسنين كلك حنين، أنا وياك عشناها الاثنين. حبك حكاية، أنت رواية، حبك حكاية، أنت رواية، حبك حكاية، أنت رواية، حبك حكاية. انت القمر ليلة سمر، كيفاش ننساك ابن البشر. انت القمر في ليلة سمر، كيفاش ننساك يا ابن البشر.